Hey guys, my name is Sarah, and I am the school director here with my husband Forrest at RMSP, and this is Quinn.
I'm not her husband, Forrest.
What do you do
Hi
here?
guys, my name's Quinn. I'm RMSP's social media manager and also an instructor here at this school. Thank you guys for tuning in. We're so excited.
We also want to make a big thanks to Canon and B&H. They're awesome, and they actually make all of our live streams possible. So thanks, guys. We love you. On top of that, I want to just kind of start hopping in. So we're going to talk about a couple of actually quite a few things today. We're going to talk about how to create a consistent Instagram feed, and also some general tips for how to really have some best practices on Instagram. And we're particularly catering this for photographers. So people who make really amazing images that they want to show off on the Instagram platform, and how to try to do their best to get that work seen by other people. So there's a few considerations that we're going to talk about, but we're also going to show you guys some really awesome profiles of some of our graduates who do these things really well. So actually, to start us off, we are going to pull up some graduate work on Quinn's phone, so you guys will see that on the screen. It should be somewhere over there. And if you can see that, awesome. Also, I want to say before we really hop in too deep that we are going to be answering comments live on this funny little iPad. So if anyone has any questions, just type them out and we'll get back to you guys, and hopefully we can answer any of those that come your way. Our way. So, Quinn, you want to talk us through what we like about Halbert Ruiz's work? He is a graduate from just a handful of years ago. He was 2016, and he has a really good aesthetic. So we want to talk about what's good about that.
Helby has an awesome Instagram feed. You can tell by the amount of followers that he has. But Helby's a graduate of ours, like Sarah said. And the awesome thing, there's a lot of awesome things about Helby's account. But one of the awesomest things is that how consistent it is. A really amazing thing that it's like people that are really, really good at Instagram have a really consistent way of editing and seeing the world and taking their photos. So he has a really consistent feed where you see that not all of his tones are exactly the same, but he has a very specific kind of moody editing style that you see an image, and even if it's not on his feed, if it's in your explore page or something, you know that it's Helby's. He also has a really great way of seeing and photographing light. So almost all of his images, you can look at them and see just stunning light, because you know that he's out there chasing light pretty much. That's what he does as a landscape photographer. So all of these are really consistent. And the great thing about that is when people follow him, they know what they're going to get. So they know that when they scroll through their feed and he posts something, they're going to get an amazing landscape with a beautiful edit, with beautiful tones and beautiful light. And that's why people follow him, because that's what they want. The other great thing that Helby does is he posts some behind the scenes images with his really, really great images, or behind the scenes videos. So like here, for example, this is a stunning image that he created. And then if you swipe over, he has a little behind the scenes video, which is awesome. So then you kind of feel like you were there, you feel like you're more a part of the experience. And that's a really, really cool thing that he does. Another one here, this is a stunning opening image where you're just like scrolling through Instagram and you see this incredible shot. And then if you keep swiping, he has more stories to tell in his caption, and you can understand where he was, the situation, what was happening, and you feel like you're a part of it. You feel like you were there, and you can understand the image more itself.
One thing that's really cool about Helby's work too is that he just is consistent. He's always looking for new things he can photograph, and that's one thing that makes people want to follow him, is that he has really an interesting perspective on the landscapes that he finds. So one thing that we always recommend as a school is to be really intentional about what makes you a photographer. So always thinking about, you know, what makes your work stand out as opposed to another photographer's work. And often that comes from looking at, you know, who you are as an individual, what you care about, what colors you like, what light you like, what places you like, what time of day you're going to photograph, and that will actually go such a long way, because your work's automatically going to be different from everyone else because it took into account who you are and what you love. And Helby does a really good job of that. So we're going to move on. We're going to talk about another person here, and this is going to be another example of some things that are really good about good Instagram feeds. So Luke Renault is another graduate, actually from 2016. They were in the same class, and they're both killing it. Luke is, he does a lot of photo illustrations. He uses his own photos, he uses stock photos, and he's a killer Photoshop wizard. So he actually does a really great job too. So Quinn's going to talk about that too.
So Luke is a totally different type of photographer that we're looking at. Sarah said, he does these kind of digital illustrations. So he has these like visions in his mind, and he makes them a real thing. He creates them digitally, which is so cool, using composites and stock images and his own images. It's an amazing process. And what he does really well is, again, that consistency. Like, you follow Luke and you know what you're going to get. You know that you're going to get these really cool kind of concepts that he's creating that are kind of otherworldly. And every single thing that he posts is like so much work gone into it, and he usually has a cool caption to go with. And it's just really, really an awesome feed to follow. So people are just interested in that, and that's also why so many people follow him, because it's so unique. And it's very consistent. Every single one has a lot of steps taken into it. And sometimes a thing that Luke does really well is he'll do a little mini series. So he'll have a very common theme with a few Instagram posts in a row. So like if we scroll down here, for example, he has kind of an underwater theme happening.
Love that shot.
This is so cool, where these are very interesting concepts that he's creating, and they're all very different, but they all have similarities where they're kind of an underwater, deep, dark, moody sort of thing, like deep sea stuff. And those are posted all together. So they go together. It's like a little mini series. So when he posts one, or what am I thinking of? Farther down.
Oh, the ocean?
These ones with the like
Oh,
the
the lights.
So
Those
like
are
you
so
see
cool.
this one, okay, and then you kind of are curious to see what's coming next in the series. You're like, ooh, what's he gonna do next with this sort of theme that he's working on? And then you see something like this, and you're like, wow, that is so different, but also it has similarities. So people look forward to seeing Luke's posts, and that's why he does so well on Instagram.
Awesome. So with that in mind, one quick thing I want to actually mention is when you're editing your work, you want to be really intentional about trying to keep things consistent. That helps with having that consistent Instagram feed, is just that your work starts to look similar. And that's what really makes a style too, is when people know what to expect from you. So that's one thing that we've spent a long time talking about on these two profiles, because that's where the consistency comes from, is making sure that you know what colors you want to emphasize, what colors you want to de-emphasize, also what level of brightness you really want to try to keep consistent, how much contrast you're going to have, how dark is your darkest dark, how light is your lightest light, all of that stuff, because that's what's actually going to make things start to look similar, even if they're shot in different scenes. With that in mind, another thing I really recommend is making sure that you keep your white balance consistent, because that's an easy thing to throw off your feed. If you have a kind of blue tinted photo next to a warmer tinted photo, it's going to start to look unbalanced. And so one thing we recommend is making sure that you're checking that and fixing that. And pretty much any phone app you're using to edit will give you those options. Even Instagram itself gives you those options when you're posting a photo. And any Lightroom or Photoshop or Capture One, those all do it for you too. So that's something that's really important to pay attention to, because we don't want you guys to forget that just making your images start to kind of have a consistent style and consistent theme starts in the editing process. It's not usually by putting them side by side, although that is a process too. You're going to need to make sure that the images themselves start to look a little bit consistent. And the way that you can start to decide with that, as far as like what colors you want to emphasize and not emphasize, is just by looking at work. You know, what are the images that you love? What do they have in common? Because there might be a lot of things that you're really drawn to that you might not notice you're drawn to, and you can start to try to make your work emphasize those things that you really love. So highly recommend it. If you guys have any questions about doing that, feel free to always reach out to us. It's a pretty fun process. So we're going to scoot on, and we're going to talk about another graduate we have here, and Quinn's going to take over again.
So a tangent off of, or not a tangent, a connection to what Sarah was just talking about a consistent editing style. We showed really great examples of both of those. But when she spoke about the color, so to have a very consistent way of editing certain colors and your shadows and your highlights really makes your work stand out. And so people know what they're going to get when they follow you on Instagram. And that's also why people hire you or buy your work, is because they know what they're going to get and they like the way that you edit. So a great example of that is another graduate of ours, Ashley. She has Ashley Caitlin Photography here on Instagram, and the way that she edits is very consistent. So as you scroll through her feed, you know exactly her editing style. You know how she works with the greens and the warm tones. The way that she edits just always looks consistent, even though all of her images are very, different compositions, different locations. different lighting, different moods, but they're all very consistent. They were all obviously taken by the same photographer, and that's why people follow Ashley, is because they know exactly what they're going to get when they hire her or follow her on Instagram, is they're looking for that. And they're probably inspired by the way that she edits too, which is another cool thing.
One thing that's also great about Ashley is you can see she's not afraid of black and white, which is often something that can be hard when you're trying to balance your feed and you're trying to keep your colors consistent, because you might be like, well, I really have this black and white photo that I love. You probably don't want to only post one black and white photo ever on your feed, but you want to kind of stagger them, and Ashley does a really good job of that, as you can see here. So there's just a black and white photo every few images, and that works because they also fit the contrast level and the brightness of the color images. So they still kind of blend in, but they're balanced by not being directly next to each other and breaking up the color too much. That's a really good tip.
That's good. Yeah, like this is obviously Ashley's image just because of the way it's edited, what she does to the shadows and the darks and the highlights. And then this is also obviously Ashley's image because of what she does to the darks and the shadows, and then the color. It's very consistent. And it's awesome.
Yep. So it all starts with style and just being intentional. One thing that we want to talk about too, if you want to pull up Stella. Stella is another photographer of an RMSP graduate from 2013, and I want to talk about her real fast because she's got a good example of maintaining a good balance in the compositions that she posted, because that's the next tip we want to talk about. Is you don't always want to post the exact same type of photo over and over again unless that's the only thing you shoot, because you're probably going to shoot, maybe a photo of a person inside versus outside versus maybe on a bike versus in a car or whatever it might be. I'm trying to think of really bad examples. But that means that every composition is going to be different. So one thing that we recommend is paying attention to which image comes next. So knowing that if you posted a photo that's kind of close up, you might want to post a far away one next. And then next photo might be a portrait, and next photo might be a detail shot. And kind of balancing those out and staggering them is a really great way to start to pay attention to how your feed will overall look. And Stella does a really good job of that. So she actually, you can see here that she's got a variety of different shots, but she kind of balances some of that negative space with more positive space in her images. And that is what makes her feed look really pleasing overall. So again, people look at your feed to decide kind of whether or not they want to continue to follow you and see your work. So if it looks better when they first look at it, that's a huge plus for you. So that's why we want you guys to pay attention to that. On top of that though, one thing that I pay attention to as well is making sure that when you are scheduling out your posts, trying to get some sort of scheduler that allows you to see what you're going to post next before you post it. So there's a lot of really cool apps that are out there, like Later is great, Planoly, Grom. There's literally so many. So pick one of those, and you can get a free plan on any of them, which is awesome. And they actually will give you a preview so that you can see which photo's coming next and how it will look in your Instagram feed. And you can rearrange if it doesn't look super great. Which actually leads to our next point, which is to pay attention to when you're posting a specific photo, because you don't want to just get excited about a photo and post it right away if it might not fit in your feed super great. Maybe it will fit perfectly in like 3 photos, but you got to put a few photos in between. So sometimes it might not be the best bet to post that photo immediately. And the other thing I want to say about all of this, as I'm rambling, is that you also want to make sure that when you are posting, just paying attention to your style. I cannot emphasize that enough, because even though there might be an image that is the best thing in the world, if it doesn't fit your style, it might not be the best thing to post. Or maybe you decide you want to switch up your style and turn it into something else. But the main thing with all of this is just being intentional, thinking before you do. That's something that will really help you guys out with Instagram.
It's true. Like if I'm a portrait photographer and I post really consistently my portrait work that's really edited similarly, and I post in a way that's mindful of composition, and I do that all right, and then maybe I just happen to take a wildlife shot that I really like and I throw that in there, that's going to screw up my whole feed. So that's something to maybe save or write a caption that explains the placement of the photo, or put it in your Instagram story, or something else. Or if you have 2 Instagrams, put it on your personal rather than your business, just to make your business photography Instagram look really consistent and professional, like you know what you're doing and you've mastered it. Like Stella has all of these images that are really strong by themselves, But then when you look through them on the feed, you have a really great balance of some negative space next to something that fills the frame, next to some movement, next to some more movement. She kind of gets consistent with that. And then we have another still life with some negative space. So it all is really strong together and separate. And that's really important.
And one thing to point out too here is this is another example of a completely different style, right? All of her images are a little bit lighter, a little bit brighter, a little bit less contrast and softer overall. She emphasized more of the like soft blues and the soft pinks, and that's what fits for her wedding style. And actually she shoots a lot of film, so that's intentional with the film choices that she makes. Another example of how there's a different way of shooting for everybody. You just got to spend some time kind of thinking through what might be that way for you.
Yeah.
So the next thing we want to talk about is you want to be really intentional about posting your images at a good time for the people who follow you. And that is good because Instagram is really particular about who they show you your work through to. You know that the algorithm is not the most amazing thing in the universe, and it drives us all crazy as photographers, because what Instagram does is it actually intentionally will only show your work to people who are consistently interacting with your profile. So if you have a bunch of followers, but only maybe 10% of them are consistently liking and commenting on your work, they're the only people who are going to see those images, even though you have more followers. So one thing we want to do is try to create more engagement, and that comes with having really good captions in your images and getting more people to like and comment quickly on your images. And then Instagram will start serving it to more of those people who don't normally get served those images. The thing that we want to pay attention to then is that we're posting at a time when our followers will actually have time and be attentive to liking and commenting, because then more people will see our work. So Quinn's showing you guys here on her phone. There's actually, if you have a business profile, which is really cool, or if you have one of those scheduling platforms that I talked about earlier, sometimes you can get analytics, which is really helpful when you're trying to figure out what is the best time to post. So she's going to show you guys that here.
So if you guys take a look at our activity, we can go into the insights on our phone, and we can see who our audience is, how often they're on Instagram, and when they're on Instagram, when they're the most active with us. And we can use that to cater to them, really. We can use that to know when we need to post, what we need to post, who we need to reach out to more, what we need to do better. So we can see all of that. So, there's an error loading our audience. That's okay. Whatever.
Okay. Hopefully it'll work for you.
But we can see all of that stuff. So I'm using this all the time to see who's following us, when they're active with us, when they message us, when they like our stuff, when they see our stuff, when they don't see our stuff. And what I've found really is kind of like my rule of thumb. You can see what time of day and what days of the week your audience is most active, but just kind of think about when you and most people are the most active on social media. So if you go to school or you work normal, like 9 to 5, 8 to 5, 8 to 6, whatever, those hours, then people are probably most active on Instagram either early in the morning before that, when they're just kind of sitting on their phone trying to wake up and go about their day, or at lunchtime sometimes is all right. And then in the evening too, when people are home from work, they're tired, home from school, they're just sitting there watching a movie, eating dinner, whatever, and they're scrolling through their phone, their Instagram feed, and interacting with Instagram accounts. So kind of think about that, and that is the best time to post. If I were to post something on Instagram at like 11 o'clock in the morning, no one would see it because no one's on Instagram, no one's interacting with us at that time, and it would just get lost in the feed. And so posting at a time that I know people are active on Instagram helps us a lot get that interaction.
Another thing that's really great about just paying attention to when and where and how you're posting is you also want to make sure to be consistent. So we want you to actually think about how often you're posting too. So you want to kind of have a plan there, because Instagram's algorithm actually takes into account how frequently you're posting and whether or not you're being consistent. So if you post one photo and then you don't post again for like 2 weeks, Instagram's going to think that your posts maybe don't matter that much to you, and they don't think they should matter that much to other people too. Actually, I have no idea if that's that's what's happening.
That's
But
right, you're right.
It sounds about right. And the other thing, so with that in mind, you want to pay attention to, if you're going to post every other day, find the best time and maybe be consistent. So always post Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and then the next week. And that kind of gets Instagram in the mindset that you're a consistent contributor to their platform, and they love that. So they will continue to serve your work more frequently to more people. The next thing you want to pay attention to is interacting with other people. That'll help your feed gain some traction. So just having other people you follow, interacting with their posts, liking, commenting, and along that, we recommend following people who are in the same genre as you. So if you're maybe a food photographer, try to follow along with other food photographers who maybe do the same thing and that you really admire. And then if you want to take this a step further, what we actually recommend is looking at who's following the photographers you follow, because they might be a really good potential follower of your work and a potential client in the future, if that's what you're looking for. And so if you're following the people who follow the people that you follow, that can be a really great way to start to create some engagement with people who might be a good fit as an audience for you. So just organic engagement is one of the main things that Instagram looks for you to actually grow your profile.
You have to be really active and intentional about actually finding followers and people to follow, which is a good thing about Instagram and also a not so good thing about Instagram, because you get to reach out and connect with people who like the same thing as you and are interested in the same thing as you, and then maybe they become followers of yours, or you can collaborate with them, or there's so many opportunities that arise when you do that. So really being active and not just being a page that people sometimes happen upon, or that the people that like, be a page that other people come across organically, like Sarah said.
Yeah, and Quinn has a lot of good tips for actually using Instagram to its full potential too, which can help with some of that engagement. Letting Instagram know that you care about their platform, they're going to care more about sharing your work with other people.
When Instagram comes out with new things, like new stickers, new highlighted stories, when they came out with that, and like the timer and the slider thing and the and the question sticker, all of those things that they've come up with, and the polls and everything, they like it when you use that stuff, and Instagram likes that, and other people do. So the people that you follow like that, they like to hit the slidey button and vote and answer questions. It's fun. And then like the highlighted stories, that's a really great way to, if you did something really cool, like a behind the scenes of a shoot that you did and you don't want that to disappear, you can now put it in the highlighted stories, and then people can see that stuff even if they just started following you. So that's an awesome thing that Instagram has, and it's a great way to make Instagram like you, basically, is to use all of those things to your advantage.
Yeah, so do that. Next thing, we want to show you another example of a graduate and talk about a few more points. So the next graduate we're going to show is Forrest Woodward. He's a good family friend of ours, and he went through a program in 2005. He is a really good example of one thing that's a really good point, which is write intentional captions. He is always really thoughtful with the words that he'll associate with his images, whether there's something about what he's doing right now, what job he's up to, or maybe something about the particular place he was in or the people he met. And he's a good writer too, which helps. But you can always become a better writer, so don't be afraid of captions. Just give people information, because sometimes just having some worthwhile words can make your images that much more impactful for people. So don't be afraid to actually spend a little bit of a minute on writing that caption. So he's really good at that, and he's a good example of just kind of making you engage even further with the words that he associates with his pictures.
Your captions also don't always have to be super long. They don't always have to tell stories, but what your captions should do is they should tell your followers a little bit more about your image and also yourself as a photographer or as a person. When we follow people on Instagram and engage with people on Instagram, we feel like we're their friends, kind of. We feel like we know them, and our captions help them to do that. So when we read Forrest Woodward's captions, we get a little bit of, we get a hint of like who he is as a person, and then we probably follow him for that reason. as well as the fact that his photos are amazing. But we follow him for his really, really great captions. And also, you know, if you post like really witty, fun captions, then that gives people a hint at your personality, and then maybe they follow you for that reason. Or if you're kind of sassy or like very wise, like any sort of, however you caption your work helps people to understand the way that you see the world, the way that you see your photos, and also lets them know who you are as a person, and then they follow you for that too.
So we like that.
But
Ray logged on. Hi, Ray. We love you.
Hi, Ray.
Hope you're doing well. He's another graduate of ours. And he asked, what's your opinion on geo tagging? So that's tagging the location that you took the photo in. And actually, I would say that's a great thing. Any other way that you can give more information about a photo is another way that people might find it. So geotagging is great because you're actually going to add that photo to a pile of photos taken in that location, which means anyone who goes to that location to look at them, they'll see your image. So it's more eyes potentially on your work than you wouldn't have had before. But if you're not into the idea of giving away every location that you've ever shot at, then just skip it on that photo. So it's not something that you have to really pay attention to doing consistently.
I think it can be more helpful when you go somewhere that's like a lot of people go to, like, or like there's a lot of tourists there, or you know, somewhere where people are gonna look at, you know, the location Patagonia, and they're gonna want to see all of those images. So that is like a big deal that you're there. So you'll want to share that location. But, you know, if you're like, if I'm in Missoula, Montana, I'm not going to tag all of my images Missoula, Montana. Even though we are cool.
It is a cool place. But you just want to be thoughtful about, you know, what's going to actually gain you more reach. How many, like, what's a place that someone's actually going to search for and might actually look for images of. And then you're going to get a little bit more help with that geotag. Zoe says hello as well. Hi, friends. Zoe is on our staff. He asked, since organic reach is dying, it is.
It is.
What is something I can do to grow my Instagram? Well, Zoe.
No, of course.
Rewind 20 minutes if you missed that, because we talked about a lot of really good things. And also, we're going to finish it by talking a few more. Also, you can ask us tomorrow when we sit next to you in the office.
Also, but for, anyway.
Literally everything that we've been talking about is great. So the next person that we want to show is Michaela. She's another graduate of ours. And with that, we want to talk about good hashtagging. And I don't even know if Michaela uses hashtags. I think I've seen her use them. But that's an example of you want to be really thoughtful about if you have a tag that will get more people to look at your work. If it's something that fits easily into maybe the genre that you're working on, or something that is really niche-y, hashtagging is great. Also, just in general, there are a lot of really amazing photography hashtags. So you guys want to be thoughtful. So you can see on Michaela's feed here, she's got some really good intentional hashtags on her image, and that's something that we really recommend. One thing that you really want to do with hashtags is be thoughtful of how many you're going to have. So you want to do usually no more than like 15 or so, because Instagram starts to actually not want to show images that have a huge amount of hashtags.
So picky.
Because they're so picky. But you want to be thoughtful about which ones you're using. So one thing that we recommend is look for hashtags that people in your field are using that are fairly small. So no more than like 100,000 posts or so. Even that can sometimes be higher than you might want it, because your photo's just going to get lost in huge piles of images. So do hashtag, but be thoughtful about it.
Totally.
Did you have more thoughts on that?
I did, but then I kind of lost it.
Did I usurp your thoughts?
What I was going to say is Michaela has a good balance of big hashtags and slightly smaller ones.
Yeah.
And you can do that when you do hashtag your images. You can see the amount of images that are associated with that hashtag or tagged with that hashtag. And so like hashtag stay and wander is huge, and hashtag outside is huge. Hashtag REI is huge. But these, you know, there are smaller ones, and like hashtag Utah is huge, because that's the whole state is like very general, and that's huge, and that's balanced out by some smaller ones like hashtag adventure that is life, stuff like that. So that searching for those hashtags that are a little bit smaller that can balance out the big ones, so that more people will see your images, and it's a little bit more narrowed down too. And you can find those hashtags by looking at the photographers that you follow that you like that shoot the same sort of thing that you do, and see what they're tagging their photos with. Research those hashtags. Find the ones with a good amount of photos associated with it, so they're not too huge, so you don't get lost in millions of images, but also not so small that there's like 5 photos with it. So somewhere in the middle, somewhere that's nice and balanced, and then you can start tagging your images with that too.
The other thing too that you guys can think about is if you are typing into Instagram search to try to find more hashtags, it'll usually recommend multiple, which is great because some of those might be a good fit for you. And we recommend actually keeping a running list because you're not going to be able to remember these off the top of your head. So keep a little note on your phone of all the ones that you're going to use pretty frequently for your particular genre, and also check up on them. Make sure that they're not suddenly exploded and there's 8 million photos and yours is never going to show up again. And make sure that it's also not just like no one cares about it anymore. So set it, but then don't completely forget it because you want to be really intentional. Again, that's what it all comes down to. While we're on Michaela's feed, the last thing we want to mention as something really important to pay attention to as an Instagrammer is to reply to the comments that come to you. That's a really huge thing because if people are taking the time to comment on your work, awesome. We love that because they're caring enough to really interact, which helps us because we get to have our work seen by more people because Instagram likes that. And it's so sweet of them to actually reach out. So one thing that's huge is to actually get back to them, reply in some sort of way, either say thank you or hello or awesome.
Just an emoji. Send
an emoji, any way that you can get back to them, that can help so much. So just again, that interaction and that engagement is what Instagram cares about the most. Michaela does a good job of that. Did you want to add anything else on there?
Just your followers want to feel like you care about them. Even if your Instagram is huge and you have like 30,000 followers or whatever, they still want to feel like they're seen, and they still want to feel like they're a part of it. So when they respond something that's like, this is an amazing image, or wow, this is so cool, or you know, whatever, you can respond to that and make them feel seen and heard. And interact with them. And then Instagram knows that you're using the platform to its full
capacity?
Yeah, sure. Like its full purpose, you're using all of that, and then your followers feel like they care about you, and then more people follow you, and Instagram shows your work to more people.
All super helpful.
Yeah.
So we hope that this was really good for you guys. If you do have any other random questions, feel free to always DM us on Instagram. Quinn will usually get right back to you. She's great about it. And also, if you like this video, please do like it because that helps us out a lot on YouTube. And subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't, because Forrest and Jeff are always putting out amazing videos. Occasionally, Quinn and I hop on and make some videos too. And it's a great place to get a bunch of free photography education. Last thing I want to say is thank you everyone for watching. It's awesome to have you guys joining us and soaking up a few of the tips that we have enjoyed learning. So hopefully it helped you guys out. Thank you.
Thank you guys. Bye.